Any questions? Yeah.
Little short. Kind of a hot term that's been kind of bandied around lately is music 2.0. A lot of people tend to think that iTunes might be associated with that. I mean, first of all, what do you guys feel is music 2.0? And also, do you think that iTunes is really a new solution or just an old way of doing things kind of made slick and interesting?
What do you think about iTunes?
It seems to me like it's just kind of, it's incredibly closed, and you've wound up with kind of where the major record labels were before. They've just kind of installed somebody above them who is now in their position in terms of the kind of control they have over distribution and kind of royalty rates, that kind of thing.
Do you think that the way that they set themselves up is does it create the same sort of cultural disconnect that you feel that you might have as a consumer with the traditional record companies?
No, because I love my iPod, but I'm not really sure that having one company that is so closely associated with kind of the digital space to the exclusion largely of many other forms of getting digital music, and one that doesn't really solve the problem of illegal downloading, is a good thing.
So how many people in this room download music? Right. How many of you download music illegally? Okay, so so the truth of it is that the record labels didn't install. These guys are lying. Trust me. Didn't install iTunes in any specific way, right? I mean, you have to understand. I mean, the record labels would like to ride Steve Jobs' coattails for as long as they possibly can, and he was just smarter to understand, like we do on the management side, that the recording of music is what funds the marketing for growing a career. So Steve Jobs is using the record labels to fund the growth of Apple. So it's not the record company's solution. The thing that's interesting, and I've been saying this for a long time about what you said, is that people actually have an opinion about the record companies. I mean, this is how actually stupid the record companies are. They actually have put themselves in a position where it's not just about whether it's discs or downloading or legal or paying or whatever. It's about you guys actually hate the record companies, right? Which is, an insane notion. I mean, here these people fund the music in some large way, either that you grew up on or that you will probably go back and study in some way over a long period of time, and you hate them, right? And by the way, I don't like them much myself. So, but the truth of it is that I grew up loving the record business, and guys like Chris Blackwell and Jerry Moss and people that built incredible record companies that was based on talent, relationships with artists, trust, the kind of things that don't really exist in the record business today. And so that to me is the most interesting thing that you really had to say, because it's not about iTunes. iTunes is just a retailer, but iTunes is just a marketing tool for iPods and Mac computers. Make no mistake about it. And when it shifts, he'll shift it so quickly he could care less about the record companies. So if he thought the content was important, he'd buy the record companies. But he doesn't really believe it's important because his platform is distribution.
I think iTunes came along at a point where Napster really created such a huge black market brand name that any notion of transacting music digitally and getting paid 99 cents for it was better than the free fall that the Napster paradigm shift had created. Now you've got a generation and a half of people growing up on music for free. The hackneyed saying is that there's two price points. It's 99 cents or free. And it's also encouraged people to buy songs rather than invest in artists' careers. They may invest in the show because the communal experience, the social experience, the go out with friends and have a good time and go see the gig is still something that can't be done in a virtual way. But iTunes, for me, like Gary says, it's just another store. I mean, I buy TV shows on it because I'm not home at night to watch my 2 or 3 favorite ones, and I'll bang them on the iPod and watch them when I'm traveling. And I like iTunes for that. What I don't like about it culturally, and the answer, I know what the answer is. There's only 2 good songs on the record, so why should we pay $12 for the CD? But there are gross exceptions to that instance, and I think that the idea that people can just... We live in such an attention deficit disorder cultural moment in history right now that I don't know will ever reverse itself, but if you look back in history at the people that set the tone, the great pioneers, the great underground artists, you would immerse yourself in the entirety of their work. You wouldn't go and listen to a Woody Guthrie song or a John Coltrane song or a Bob Dylan song and feel like you've got it so then you can move on. The further enhancer to that is that the music blog culture that has really sort of gone to the forefront of music discovery allows you to kind of sample and cut and paste without spending a nickel, and you feel like you've sort of got the hot list of the moment digested without any transaction or deeper investigation into what that artist, what their career breadth is. So these are the things that I'm sort of more fascinated with, is whether or not iTunes is the bad guy or not. It's useful up to a certain point. I still like to walk into Other Music in Manhattan just to look at what the staff recommends are, or do the same thing at Barnes & Noble in the DVD section. And if you've got the appetite for it, be as active as a consumer as your budget can allow, and go deep into history, because to really understand it, and one of the big joys of me coming down here to talk to you guys is that I remember being on that side of the room a long time ago. These guys I have a lot of time and respect for, but John Snyder, who runs this program down here, is a real treasure and a real resource, and you guys are all lucky to have him down here. John and I made records with guys that pioneered jazz in the 50s and 60s, and we made records in their sort of golden years together and did a series just in the hope that people who bought into what A&M's brand was at the time, in the days when major labels had good reputations, that people saw a Sun Ra record or a Cecil Taylor record or a Don Cherry record on A&M in 1989 or 1990, the same time we were putting out a Soundgarden record or a Soul Asylum record, that they would take a shot with it. So to understand the future in any cultural endeavor is to really understand the pioneers of the past, and to really to go there and to try to somehow offset the fact that consumption these days is limited to a song or two at a time. Which
the exception to that, Steve, though, is vinyl.
Yeah.
We're seeing in our stores, and some of my stores are reporting a 3,000% growth rate in vinyl. I mean, just going from a section as big as this table to 10 times as big as this table in 1 year. And a lot of it are people your age, and it's market by market. I don't know that New Orleans has anything like that, but you go to Austin, or you go to Denver, or you go to Seattle, or you go to LA, there's places for you to go. And we look at it kind of as a digital pushback. It's like, it's really great to own all these files, and I've got 17,000 high-res files on my iPod, and I like having it on the road with me, but there is nothing better than going through a stack of vinyl and figuring out which side is perfect for that exact moment, because it's going to sound better, and it's going to give me the time to pause and look at the album jacket and really get into that artist. And if I need to turn around and Google that artist and find out more, I've got that tool at my disposal. But that is a listening experience that I personally treasure. And it's not about these artists that you hear on the radio, that there's one or two good songs. It's about people who put out incredible works of art. Gary, what was it like the first time you heard OK Computer when they came in and played that for you?
Well, we had spent a lot of time with him after Creep had broken, right on the first record, and we realized early on. I was having this conversation with Matisyahu the other day, because, like Radiohead, they broke a song, not an artist. And so when we put out the first track off the Benz, which was My Iron Lung, we realized no one cared, nobody, no radio station, nobody bought it, nothing, and so we believed in the band, and we decided at Capitol to make Radiohead the biggest priority at the label. And we worked really, really hard to sell 500,000 or 600,000 records over about 18 months. And in that set up OK Computer. So it was the 2 years of work that set up OK Computer. When they came in and played it for me, I knew that it was genius. I knew that it was really special. I knew the band had grown to the point where they were going to be the biggest band in the world. And what I said to them at the time was, look, this 7-minute track that opens the record is going to be the first single. And they looked at me like a cross-eyed. They thought I was out of my mind. I said, well, if we don't put that out, we're never going to get to it. And we should put it out first, go make me a video, and I'll get a commitment from MTV to play it prior to us making the video, which they had never done. And we went into MTV, they committed to it, and we decided to open up the record in a way to teach people that we're in a business not of tracks, but in breaking careers, and MTV bought into it. And the way in which we gave people kind of the Nirvana cassette model of getting music out to people in those days was we took a cassette of OK Computer and we put it into a Walkman, and we glued the door shut, and we gave out about maybe 500 copies to special people, and no one could take the cassette out to actually copy it or do anything with it, but inside this Walkman they got for free was OK Computer, and people started talking about it, and it was the belief that this was such a special piece of product, and we believed in the career of the band, that we went through all the steps it took to get there. Little did we know that it had gone beyond our wildest imagination. From a band who had had a big hit on their first record to their third record debuting at #1, we couldn't imagine that, but it was a long process.